In the heart of Houston, a city of diversity and resilience, a story unfolds, a story of unsung heroes, visionaries, and trailblazers, a story of Latinos rising in the digital age. From doctors saving lives in our hospitals to the artists painting the future and the entrepreneurs building legacies, these voices are leading the way, breaking boundaries and redefining what it means to be Latino in America. Our culture, our stories, our people, each one with a journey that touches the heart and inspires the soul. From the pages of history to the screens of today, VIVA Magazine Live continues its legacy of uplifting the Latino community and telling the stories that need to be heard. VIVA Magazine Live isn't just a show, it's a movement, a celebration of Latino excellence, and a call to action for the next generation to fulfill their hopes and dreams and become an active part of the Latino voice. Join us as we tell the stories that inspire, unite, and elevate. Together we can ensure these voices are heard loud and clear. We invite you to be part of something bigger. Support VIVA Magazine Live and make history with us. Support the vision and invest in our community. Hola, Houston. Welcome to VIVA Magazine Live. I'm your host, Blanca Blanco, and here we are at the Baker Ripley House on Navigation. We're here for the Hernandez versus Texas event hosted by LULAC Council 688 and the National LULAC Council. So stay tuned and keep on watching for the rest of the program. Houston, welcome to VIVA Magazine Live. I'm your host, Blanca Blanco, and here we are at the Baker Ripley House on Navigation with the Hernandez versus Texas event sponsored by LULAC Council.
688 in the national office.
688 in the national office. Thank you. We have David Contreras here, and he's the event organizer. David, tell me, what is the importance of having this event?
This event is real important because we get to bring to the community a major story that had a significant impact on Latinos. It kind of set the landscape from a legal perspective of dealing with the 14th Amendment, which was equal protection of the law, specifically for Latinos.
Right.
And this led to other civil rights cases that were successful dealing with housing, employment, and voting rights.
Right. I was just going to ask you, what's the impact on the Mexican Americans for this Supreme Court decision?
It was enormous. It's hard to put into words, but I think the most important thing is getting the word out to the community, and one day getting this story into the public and the private school textbooks.
I like history, and I like my last name. So I was in New York several years ago at the federal building there. There's a big old life-size portrait of a gentleman named Harold Medina. So Harold Medina is the first Mexican-American appointed to a federal bench. And he was appointed by then President Harry Ruben. And he was also the first Mexican-American to argue from the Supreme Court. And he also made the picture, the cover of Time magazine. So, those are things, as you study this case, they're just, you find more and more and more. Last night when I was getting prepared, when I was sitting at the table, I found a 70-page law review article about the Hernandez case. I've never seen it, so I finally started reading it. And I finished it this morning. It's just amazing. And there's more to it than just this. So that's who Judge Deanna is. I got the privilege to go sit at a baseball game with him. He's a huge Astros fan. I don't know him as well as some other people did, but I certainly remember him. He made an impression on my life. When I went to his funeral, the place was packed. They had an Aggie funeral, and that in itself was amazing. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And he served honorably as part of this fantastic team. And so we have. Great Judge Ramirez.
I purchased serve in criminal court number 8. Misdemeanors are class A or class B. And part of my job is making sure that folks' rights are protected. Everyone is entitled to a jury of their peers. Everyone is entitled to have their rights protected and be treated with respect, frank. So when this case started, it really wasn't a question of whether Hernandez was guilty. Okay, of course, the attorneys are going to fight, zealously advocate for their client to get a not guilty verdict, but that really wasn't kind of what they were trying to focus on. So in Jackson County, in Edna, Texas, Hispanics made up about 17% of the population, yet in 25 years had never served in a grand jury or a petit jury, so the folks that get called, okay? 25 years. Folks with Mexican-American surnames were not called. And so in order to tackle this, Gus Garcia, the trial attorney, knew that he had to be creative. And so what he did first was file a motion to quash the grand jury, as well as motion to quash the indictment. And those are really fancy ways of saying, look, you're not doing this the fair way. You indicted this person for murder of a grand jury that has none of his peers. There are no Mexican Americans in there. There haven't been enough for 25 years. It's illegal. So the judge denied that. He says, no, we're going to quash the indictment because it was done, again, we're having a trial now with, before it was the grand jurors, now it's the petit jurors, and none of them are Mexican Americans. So if you are violating his 14th Amendment under equal protection, you are depriving him of equal protection under our Constitution.
Judge Medina. Can you tell us why Gus Garcia took this case?
So, as was discussed previously, there was obviously systemic racism. There was exclusion of the Mexican American people in many areas, not just restaurants, but education, juries, etc. There was just an active exclusion. But because, as the states were arguing in the trial level as well as the appellate level, the state argues that because we have cases that confirm a Mexican American is a white person, there's no way that they could be discriminated against. It's not possible because they're white. So who are they going to be discriminated against by? Their own white counterparts? So that was the state's argument. And there was a plethora of cases that actually supported that legal argument. There's a Salazar case, there's a Sanchez case, Lucille, I'm sorry. I think there were at least 5 to 6 cases here in Texas that supports the state's argument that you can't be discriminated against.
And here we have attorney Ruben Pettis. Ruben, tell me, what do you see the significance of this is? What did it mean to our Latino community?
Oh, God, it's so important for us to memorialize this case, Hernandez versus State, in that this particular case highlighted that Mexican Americans are supposed to be treated like persons, not like persons under the Constitution of the United States of America. They were entitled to due process, they were entitled to equal rights, they were entitled to be tried by a jury of our peers. It's just such a pivotal case in the history of jurisprudence in the United States of America.
That's right. So after the Supreme Court decision, the ruling that it was reversed, and he came back and the attorneys had a new trial for Mr. Hernandez, did the community expect that he, were they surprised that he was still found guilty?
I don't know necessarily that the community was surprised that he was found guilty, but at least the community felt that the verdict was a just verdict. It was a fair verdict as opposed to a kangaroo court type system that they had at the time.
That's right. I agree with that 100%. And he did get a fair trial. He had a jury of his peers. So I think that the verdict, how it turned out, was a just verdict.
It was a just verdict. And again, it was not necessarily the guilt or innocence phase of it. It was just that every person, not just citizen,
right,
every person on our soil is entitled to a fair trial. Constitution doesn't say citizens, it says persons.
That's right. Thank you very much, Ruben.
Actually have an incredible seat to be an audience and now a witness to how history actually took place. And so I really hope that you will really just give your full attention to the conversation that's going to be had. Some of you will go on to become lawyers. And having this as a background to those discussions and that journey is important. Some of you may go on to be judges, like the folks that we have here with us today. And again, having that framework in mind will be incredible for you to be able to make the most important and critical historical making decisions. And so today is a very, very, very special day, and I'm so proud of everyone who had a hand in making this happen. Please never, ever step away from the opportunity to serve on a jury. It is so critical. And so it's important to remember moments in our history like these because they affect us all. When one person's rights are in jeopardy, it rattles the protections that are endowed to us by the United States Constitution. Another reason why it's important to remember moments like this in our history is to reflect upon and be inspired by, as I mentioned, the fighting spirit of those who stood up even when the odds were stacked high, incredibly high against them. And that includes Mr. Pete Hernandez, the defendant, a man who was working at picking cotton, and his legal team comprised of members of LULAC, Mexican Americans, those who are not a part of the traditional fabric, the status quo, the in-the-know type of crowd at the time. In August of 1951, Pedro Pete Hernandez was arrested on murder charges. 2 months later, he was tried and convicted by an all-white jury and sentenced to life in prison. A Mexican-American legal team filed a civil rights case. And by the way, it's LULAC that made this happen. So anyone who's not a member of LULAC, you need to become a member. Young folks, we have youth chapters for youth councils for young people to become members of LULAC. Really, really think about it. But it was a Mexican-American legal team that filed a civil rights case from Texas stating that Hernandez was deprived of the 14th Amendment protection of his rights of jury procedure in Jackson County, Texas, because of his race. There were no persons of Mexican descent serving as jury commissioners or jurors, grand jurors, or petit jurors. The case was argued before the U.S. Supreme Court on January 12, 1954. The court was asked to determine whether Mexicans were legally white. Exclusion of Mexican Americans from serving on Texas juries was ruled illegal, and the judgment of the conviction was reversed. The Hernandez versus the state of Texas case and the Supreme Court's decision in 1954 against the exclusion of Mexican Americans on juries represents a crucial moment in the fight for civil rights. So we appreciate everyone's attendance to be here. It really warms my heart to see so many people taking time out of this beautiful day to be in this place to hear this very important conversation. And as you hear this conversation by our distinguished members of this panel, please don't keep the information to yourself. Share it with others. Let them know what you have learned today.
100%. The fact that it was unanimous, that they recognized that there was a difference. And so we're going to go ahead and kind of mention the part that they said. Circumstances or chance may well dictate that no person in a certain class will serve on a particular jury or during some time or particular period. but it taxes our credibility to say that a mere chance resulted in there being no members of Mexican American class of over 6,000 jurors called in the past 25 years. The result is police discrimination, whether or not it was conscious decision on the part of any individual jury commissioner. The judgment of the conviction must be reversed.
Bring this home, right? Think about it. If somebody doesn't trust you to use the same bathroom as them, or doesn't even want you to be buried in the same funeral home as them, or come into a restaurant where they are they going to be a fair juror to you? Now, Pete Hernandez did shoot somebody and kill him. It was because he was called a gimp who couldn't get a lady, and so it was a bar fight. So he was retried, and he was convicted by a more fair jury, theoretically, and sentenced to 20 years. But the fact that he even went to trial with all of the evidence against him was a risk for him. So Gus Garcia actually fought for him to get parole. He sent numerous letters to the parole board. He visited in person. He made calls, and he said this man risked a death sentence in going to trial so that we could fight this case and fight for Mexican Americans to be recognized as having the right to sit on juries. And so he did get parole after 9 years of serving time in prison, thanks to Gus Garcia's advocacy, which is funny, right? We think that this is fair, even though none of us support murder and think it's fair for someone who murdered someone to be convicted. But we also understand that it's important that anyone who's charged with a crime get a fair trial and a fair sentence. And so that's what happened in this case, and that's why this case is so important.
They were part of La Huelga here in Houston, Texas, and I just want to say thank you so much. The busing and the integration of the students was occurring also. The law states one thing, but the actions were another. So the Mexican students and the black students were the only students being transported away from their home schools, and the English students stayed in their home schools. So my parents and a group of civil rights activists fought against that, and they won. Are protected and have benefited from their actions. Thank you.
Okay, here we are at the Baker Ripley House on Navigation after the Hernandez, Texas event, 71 anniversary of this historical case. And we have here Miss Yolanda Navarro Flores. And she's an attorney, and I just want to know, Yolanda, what did you think about this?
The program was outstanding, and one of the things that stands out the most to me as a female attorney is all the female judges. I mean, we've made such progress. When I first started, you couldn't wear pants in the courtroom. Right. Now we have all these Hispanic, Latina judges, and it's a fabulous accomplishment for the community.
Well, you know, this case was a significant milestone for the Mexican Americans and Latinos as we are. And I mean, this has really made an impact for the Latino judges, hasn't it?
It absolutely has. But and the thing about it is that we were finally recognized as a group of our own, and as many of the titles of the movies or books, it's a class of our own, because it was basically looked at as a black and white world, and in the courtrooms it was black and white, so we were like almost non-existent. Right. And so what the fact of all these outstanding judges and attorneys did was to bring us to the forefront and say, hey, we matter, we're here, we're important too.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you very much, Yolanda.
Commissioner Garcia, thank you for making this happen. Thank you for the work.
House of Navigation with the Hernandez versus